Hi. After the Brexit referendum vote on the 23rd of June 2016 and the votes were counted, we started seeing the political and mainstream analysis of the voting results. We heard politicians make statements like, in Scotland 62% voted to remain in the EU, whereas overall people voted to exit the EU, and statements such as, older voters voted to exit the EU, while younger voters voted to remain in the EU. Just think about those two statements for a moment. How were they able to make such claims? Aren't ballot boxes and voting slips confidential? They make a big thing of you entering a cubicle, maybe with or without a curtain, folding the slip so no one else can see it, and then inserting it into a secret black box in a lot that's also locked. So how do they know how Scotland voted and the age of the voters? The Electoral Commission adds a unique ID code to each voting card. It's in very small writing in the bottom corner and not easy to see. They justify this unique ID that associates the voting card to you by way of a means of preventing fraud. Imagine either you or the Electoral Commission suspect fraud, and a recorded vote that differs from what you actually made. They would be able to track down the actual voting card and see that it did indeed agree with how you voted. I can see the case for having the ID as a means of preventing fraud, but purely as a means of preventing fraud. But it is clear that the voter details / voting card association must be being used for means other than preventing fraud. I view this as an abuse and a misuse of what should be highly confidential data. We know the Electoral Commission must be supplying your age, the voting station, county and country from the type of graphs that we see plotted. So what else are they supplying to the politicians? Your sex, your address, your marital status, your occupation? Who knows? You might be of the opinion, oh, this is a big deal. But as I showed earlier, this data was taken from the BBC's article. So the BBC has a very good breakdown of who voted across the EU referendum. Also, if the BBC has it, members of the public and all government and private bodies know this data. And as they keep calling for a second vote, if there was a second vote, they know exactly which counties and areas and age groups and so on to target. Scottish politicians, for example, have been abusing this data. They've been armed with the geographical and age details of the Brexit referendum voting, and have been doing their best and continue to do so to change the course of events, arguing that Brexit is an English decision and not a UK or Scottish decision. But if your vote was as confidential as you were hoodwinked into believing, none of these claims would have been possible. Even our own voting data is being abused.